Throughout the painting, you'll see me add a few different colors of paint to my palette. And I also like to use this large palette knife. So you'll see me wipe it from time to time just to get kind of the color off of it. But to begin with, we're going to start with titanium white. We would like to use a lot of this white mixed in to kind of get a pastel color scheme. And pretty much I just took that titanium white and rubbed it all over my canvas just to kind of get that dappled color effect. We'll need a red and a purple of your choice. Any of the reds or purples that you have will work just fine. But I covered the background with just some mixture of purple and green and yellow, and then kind of did some just straight strokes across it to get that kind of Easter color effect. I'm also adding this blue onto my palette. So just get a little squirt of that, and then once your background is covered, which it's fine if it's wet, because it'll help kind of blend in some of the colors we're going to use. We're going to start by adding the paint onto our palette knife and sort of making a pear shape. So I'm starting out with a little circle, you know, midway through your canvas. This is going to be the top of our bunny's head, and then I'm going to kind of feather it down and mix it on the canvas just to kind of get a solid pastel-y pink color. So this is the titanium white and the red that I'm mixing together straight onto my canvas. So I'm not mixing it on my palette. I kind of like the brush strokes within it. And then I'm just going to keep on forming that pear shape. And you might need to go back from time to time just to kind of make it larger depending on your canvas. You'll see me reshaping it many times just to get the desired pear shape effect that I'm looking for. So the lower part of the pear is going to be like the bunny's jawline. The top part's going to be his sort of forehead, and then right where those two circles meet will be where his eyes go. So I'm going back with more red. I like to try to get some heavier, more intense red color around the perimeter of my shape just to give it a volume effect. And then now I'm going to add a little bit of that purple in. So I'm going to put the purple towards the bottom of my pear shape. That's going to help kind of represent the shadow that's casted underneath the bunny's face. And then I'll add some of that up at the ears as well. With acrylics, I like to use the darker color first and then kind of work my way towards the lighter colors. Sometimes you'll see me go back and add a few dark colors here and there, which I'll end up doing in this painting as well. But to start out, I like to start with the darker colors and then just kind of layer and layer more of the lighter colors on top and kind of blend as I go to get the right colors. So I'm taking that purple and mixing it in up here at the forehead area, kind of reinforcing that pear shape. And then when I'm doing my strokes, I kind of like to do kind of jagged, like cross hatching, not just keeping them all the same direction. I like to kind of do like little plus signs, one down and then one horizontal, and that kind of creates a neat little texture, in my opinion, on my painting. Just gives it a little bit of movement, I feel like. Alright, so we're going to work on the bunny's shoulder area down here as well. I'm mostly going to use blue down here because I want that to sort of be casted in shadow, and I don't want that to be the main focus of our painting. I want the focus to be more on the bunny's face, and by using the colder blue color, that kind of helps it go to the background a little more. What do they call that? Regress into the background, whereas the face with the lighter, brighter colors will kind of project. So bringing that blue up on the ears because I want to see a little bit of a shadow cast on those. And then I'm just going to keep adding some more here and there to the shoulder area and under his kind of where the bunny's cheeks would be, because that blue is going to help with that shadow that would be cast from his cheeks. So now we're going to start working on the nose. The bunny's nose is kind of like a little triangle shape, and you just want to kind of take some of that blue and use your palette knife to blend it in to get a nice kind of shape like a triangle to kind of show his nose and his brow line. And then you just take your palette knife and kind of blend that in with the colors we already have on there. So that pink that we made is going to kind of help blend that blue in so it's not so intense. And then we're going to go with that blue some more and just kind of continue making a little more depth around his bunny cheeks there. So you can see I'm making like little circles, one on the left side, one on the right side, and I'm just kind of using my palette knife to kind of feather them out to get a nice shape that I feel like fits his face. Because I don't want him to be too small, which you'll notice I kind of go back in and make him a little bit larger as I go, as I start defining his face a little bit. And then under his eyes will be a shadow because of the way, the bone structure of the bunny's face is. So I add a little blue under there as well. What I try to do is whatever color I'm working with on my palette knife, I'll take that and go use it in all the places that I feel like need that color. So I'm loading the blue on. I feel like I need blue anywhere I can see shadow or like where the bunny's coloring maybe has a little bit of a variation in it. And that's where I'll take that palette knife with the blue on it and kind of add it here or there. That way I'm not muddying up my painting. If I was to keep switching back and forth with the different paint colors, eventually the palette knife would be contaminated with all those colors and kind of start blending everything in. And I really kind of want the blue to be separate from the pink, unless I need a blend. Then I'll sit there and I'll kind of purposefully blend it in. But whenever I'm just going in and adding a touch of color here or there, I want to try to keep my palette knife soft to the touch when I put it on there. So with the white, we're going to end up using a lot of white. This is the titanium white that I'm taking around, and I'm adding a few highlights where I feel like light will hit the bunny's bone structure. So like on his cheeks, he's kind of got like a fluffy little round cheek area. So I try to take that white and blend it in to sort of get that curvature. I also go into his shoulders and add some here. Just something to kind of take that flatness away from that solid blue color we have there. And like the solid of the pink. So this white's going to help add some depth. And it's going to help lighten it up and give us more of like a pastel color scheme for our bunny. So I know sometimes it's hard to see, as you're working what you got to work with. But the more you go and the more color and depth and shadows and highlights you start adding, eventually you'll start seeing more of your bunny come into life. The great thing about acrylic paint is you can just layer on top of layer. So if there's something you don't like about it, you can just go and change it out real easily. And you'll see I do that a lot. I'll kind of have this preliminary shape, and then as I'm going, I start seeing that I don't want it to bend this way, or I don't want it to bend that way. So I'll go in and I'll add a little bit over top of it to kind of define the shape a little more. So we're just going to keep on adding that white around. And for the most of the time that's left on our painting, it's mostly going to be white that we're going to be using. Toward the end, I plan on going back with a little bit of like yellow to kind of add to the highlights. But every now and then, if you feel like your white is getting muddy with the other colors, just wipe it. Just take your cloth and squeeze your palette knife as you pull it, and that'll get that extra paint off. And also, if you have any smaller palette knives, sometimes it's helpful, like this one, to go back and take the white and add it using that, because it'll be a little more accurate and a little more flexible, so it'll bend a little bit softer, so it's not scraping away the paint that's underneath it, because now we're getting into really thick layers of paint on our rabbit. And that's a good thing. The kind of impasto looking paint effect is kind of what we're going for on this painting. So it'll take a while for it to dry when we're all done, but it'll have a great texture and movement to it. And I think you're going to love the way it's going to turn out. And it'll be perfect for your mantle decor for Easter this year. So I'm just taking that white again, adding some more highlights. I'd like to have a little bit by his cheekbones, just to kind of add some more definition. So you can see I'm just adding it right here, kind of curving it around and giving it some fluffiness to his cheeks. And then I need to go back and define his nose a little bit more too. So you'll see me come back with the white, and then I'll come back a little bit with blue later and kind of create a more defined nose area. So here I'm defining the cheeks a little bit. You can see how I'm kind of taking my palette knife and making sort of semicircles with the white around the cheeks and the mouth to add these little highlights in here to give it some more definition. Now the colors that I chose today are definitely, you can change them. So I just wanted to kind of go with a purple pink pastel-y look, mostly because that's what colors I had in my paint box that I was hoping to use up, because I had a bunch of little tubes laying around from all my wedding painting that I was getting tired of having to sift through them all. So I had a lot of blue and pink and red, so I just wanted to use those up, and that's kind of what made me choose these colors. However, if you want to do it more like oranges or more greens or more yellows, or if you actually want to do it brown like a bunny would be, you're welcome to do that. The main thing is just to select 4 or 5 colors and kind of keep it at that. You don't want to get too many mixed in there right away, just in fear that it might get kind of dull with all the colors mixing. So if you keep them within the same color range, it's kind of helpful, so when they do start blending, it's not turning into brown. In the end, when I start adding that yellow, you'll see where you just got to be real subtle, because when I start adding the yellow in, it can actually turn into brown, and I didn't want any brown in my painting, so you just kind of lightly add any of those unique colors in there. So like if there's like a focal color you want to use, which mine was yellow, that's at the very end, you'll go in and add that. Alright, so I'm just going to keep defining my bunny a little bit. You can be done at this point with the fur if you feel like, and then we'll go add the eye in. But I felt like I needed to add some more colors and just some more bunny fluff to them. So I went and defined the ears a little more, and I go in and I blend some of that in to get more purple. Everybody's painting will look unique and a little different. So now we're going to go ahead and add in those eyes. The bunny's eyes are just going to be straight black, and we're going to just add some little like ovals right at the intersection of the smaller circle of his forehead and the larger circle of the bunny's jaw. So when we were making the pear, pretty much where the arms would be if you were, making a person out of a pear, I guess. I don't know, that's an odd analogy, but essentially right where you start to see the top of the pear meeting the bottom of the pear. And you're just going to put an oval there. So I'm working on a 24 by 30 inch canvas, so mine is pretty large. And do the same. You just want to try to make sure that they're on the same level plane, so that way your eye's not all lopsided. So you'll see I kind of trace the bottom of my eye over to kind of get an idea of where the bottom of my other eye should stop and where the top of it should start. So You can see the bunnies coming along. It's starting to look quite cute. And see, there I go tracing it to so kind of get a good alignment. I just kind of wave my arm over from the bottom of the other eye and kind of have an invisible ruler there to use as a reference. Once we get this black on here, we'll go back with white and add just a little dot of white in the eyes, kind of have a little shine. I'm taking my time with the eyes because I feel like the eyes are the main thing you look at when you're looking at this painting. It sort of is the focus, the focal point. So I want to make sure they're as accurate as I can. So that's why I'm focusing a lot more attention on them here. While I have the black, since I didn't put much black in my colors before, I'm going to take whatever black is left on my palette knife and kind of just go down and define those nostrils a little bit on the rabbit and his split lip there. So I'm going to just kind of draw a line down with the black, and then I'm going to kind of add a little bit of black where his mouth part would be there and his lips. And then just do a double check on your painting and see if there's anywhere else you feel like you need black. I feel like when using black, less is more. You don't want it to really look outlined. So, you know, I might put a little hint of black up in his ear where I feel like his forehead's kind of casting a shadow, sort of like right here. And I might go and add a little bit in here just as like, I don't know, a little fur ball, fuzz tuft or something inside of his ear, because sometimes inside a bunny's ear is like super hairy. So just by adding a little bit of black in there, it adds that little bit of depth. And then down on his shoulder area, I'll add a few little bits of black down there. And I feel like that's probably all I'll add for black. I know I've still got a lot on my palette, but I don't want to overly dull the painting. Sometimes black dulls your painting. So what I like to do is use purple instead of black, or blue instead of black. That way it gives you some extra depth that just using straight black doesn't give. So you'll see me come back to those eyes in a little bit, and I'll probably add some just pure blue in there to kind of break up that solid black of his eyes. Alright, so I'm going to fast forward through some more of this defining area that I'm doing, and essentially you're done with the painting after you do your eyes. Everything else is kind of optional that I'm going to do, so I'll probably go back and add a few like eyelashes and whiskers, but until then I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through this so you don't have to sit through it as I'm picking away at my work. So you can see I'm kind of just taking my palette knife and dragging it along the cheek area to create like a whisker. So there's so much paint on our canvas right now that you don't really have to add any extra paint, but if you want to, you can add, what I did was some white and some yellow. So I just added a little bit on the side of my palette knife, and then I drug my palette knife sort of in a rainbow arc shape right at his cheeks, and then I did some at his eyes as well, and to give him sort of some eyelashes. So it's just a real subtle effect, but I think that it adds a nice sort of whisker effect, because whiskers are kind of like clear anyways. You don't want them to be too heavy, because then it'll sort of look cartoonish, or more cartoonish than what we've got. So by having them kind of like nice and whiskey like that, it kind of adds some fun little texture to our bunny. And then I'm taking the yellow with a little hint of white on it, and I'm just going with a clean palette knife and adding the additional color of that yellow in any of my highlights. So when you do this, you have to do a really soft and light drag, so you're not blending that yellow into the colors that are underneath the white. So easily it can get that brown color like I mentioned earlier. So just be real soft and gentle when you're going and doing this. After you've had plenty of time to sort of look at your painting and alter anything you feel like you want to change. That's when I decided I'd just go back and paint the sides of my painting, since my canvas is 1.5 inches thick, so yours might not be that thick, but I want to kind of have that same background texture on my sides of my canvas as well, so when it's hanging up, everybody can kind of see it's one continuous piece and not left undone. So I spent a few more minutes kind of just finalizing my bunny's face before I did the sides. You can spend as much time as you want to finessing yours and refining it, but I feel like I'm happy at where I'm at on my bunny now. So after I get these sides tackled, I'm going to be done, and we're just going to let that dry overnight. I hope that maybe if you have a pet at home and feel inspired by this, then you can do something similar to what we've done today, but put your pet on there instead. It doesn't have to be a bunny rabbit like mine. It could be your own puppy dog.